Hello, I am the cartoonist M. Rashid. I want you to follow this model template with me. It is a great function as a systemic racism tool. This is how it functions. This is how it goes. Um, Black Americans get together and with a loud voice, however limited in some region or some aspect of politics. Um, the response is a positive one with a very high profile, well branded, well marketed, big money moves start moving in Black Americans' direction. And white and POC grifters show up with pro Black front groups to help manage or to help facilitate, to help whatever. And they take huge portions of this money to help manage whatever is happening in some way. In the end, you find that very little of the money, very little of the programs actually end up reaching the Black Americans because of all these other groups got in the way and like a feeding frenzy. On the other side of the program, you have all these much wealthier whites and POC groups now making fun of Black Americans for still being in the poor state, despite all the money moves and all that's been spent, all the taxpayers' money that's been spent. It's their fault. They must have mismanaged all that money. That's the kind of talk that's now coming from whites about the Black Americans after all this has happened on their behalf. And then you repeat cycle. Maybe not immediately, but eventually, like the continued artificial impoverished state of the Black American, brings up these big voices again, and now moves start happening. And as soon as the whites and POCs hear these big money moves, they come running over like piranha. Black Americans still poor, white Americans still talking trash about them as if actual help had reached them. Meanwhile, conspicuously, whites are, every time this happened, much richer. Repeat. So, we've seen similar versions of this model over the years. The big ones are like that, huge economic moves. There was a homesteading act that was put in place after the whites got their homesteading act and all their free land and stuff. But one was specifically put in place because blacks had been, for the most part, left out of the other one, or just had their stuff stolen. So the one was specifically put together, I think, in 1866. That was for Black Americans, the former slave class. Here's your homesteading act. Conspicuously, it wasn't free. It was just greatly reduced prices, greatly reduced, not free like the others got, but it was still a thing. Here's for you. And it had all kinds of other special laws and restrictions put on it that the others didn't have, but still, it was for the Black American. The homesteading program came and went. And then when it was over, a study came in to look at it and say, okay, how successful was it? So they all the land that was allotted. They went in and discovered most of it was in the hands of white people. That means it was a failure. It was intended for this group. On the other side of it, this group grifted their way in and took all the land. And at the time period, if you brought the subject up, whites would say, well, you got your own homesteading act. What's the problem? Cycle, repeat over. Things put in place for you. Your rival hears of it, shows up, takes it, and then makes fun of you for mismanaging what was given to you. Keeps happening. You can see it on the smaller scale. I'm gonna do this just for the color of it. I'm gonna go down this side road to show you like slight lesser versions of a similar model of how they function. Something good for Black Americans in some way, immediately taken over and exploited. And in Hollywood you have a series of blaxploitation eras that came and went. They went because they'd been milked dry by your rival. They started like most like pop cultural things starts. Like one thing starts and a bunch of people jump on board and want to do their own version of it to like ride the trend, which is fine. Like what's his name? Scott Joplin, when he like wrote his famous ragtime song, and then everybody had to do their version of that song, and they called it a genre. Everybody doing their version of Scott Joplin's original famous song was a genre called ragtime. Everybody jumped on board. Oh my God, it's so fun. If people don't have a problem, if the original creator didn't have a problem of it, and like, oh, this is nice that it captured the public's attention this way. If he doesn't make a big deal about it, then okay, it's a genre, whatever, run with it. Some people have an issue with it. They like IP theft and things like that. But in Hollywood, more closer to the modern day, we had eras where, let's say, Melvin Van Peebles and his Sweet Sweetback's Badass song came out. And it started a trend. It was super popular. Innovative young director filmmaker put this out, and it created the first blaxploitation because white people saw this and were like, "Oh, you like black movies, huh?" And they like immediately start pumping out all these low budget black people movies to like capture that dollar, because there weren't enough black filmmakers to like meet that demand themselves. So white people jumped on it and with their version of black characters and snatched up that trend until they wore it into the ground. I think the end of that trend was probably The Wiz. It was probably the last of the blaxploitation movies from that period. And in that, the white billionaires came together and they were like, okay, let's like, we're gonna like do a big budget like super movie and like be like ultra super rich over it, but it didn't work out the way they wanted. And it either like flopped or barely broke even or something, So when that happened, they like abandoned and were like, black people don't like black movies anymore. That's how they responded to it. I think the next blaxploitation was when Singleton's Boys in the Hood came out. And they did the same. Oh, you like those kind of coming of age black gangster movies, huh? Oh, here's a billion of them. Immediately leaped on the trend. So you do something, they pounce on it and saturate the industry with knockoff crap, and then kill the genre with that look to it. So now in the bigger stage, in the economics, is where it's a real big deal. This is where it functions high level systemic racism. Like with the example of the Homesteading Act of, I think it was called the Southern Homesteading Act or something like that, of 1866. Designed for you, end up empowering them even more, and you just left out in the cold. But they act like you received what you were supposed to receive, and it locks you out of access even further because they play that role. So this cartoon was inspired by the latest. I mean, there's quite a few that I don't think they ever really stopped. They're just like, there might be gaps in between and more on a smaller level locally in like certain cities and something. But on the big stage, there was this one particular one that got a lot of press. One of the co-founders of the hashtag ADOS movement, attorney Antonio Moore, he tweeted this article from an Asheville, North Carolina paper, where there was this big, highly marketed event that Asheville, North Carolina were going to do reparations for their local blacks, for their local black community. When Tone posted it, he was like, "This isn't reparations." So when you look into the article, they point blank say, "Oh, this isn't like cash payments for anybody." And how it functioned was the concept of the opportunity zone. And that's, no different than the model that I started this video with. It's doing the same thing. So they will say this, "Oh, this is reparations for our local blacks. Now everything's going to be better for them, finally." And then everybody was like, when you see the groups involved and who's doing the talking and who's like agreeing to make this a thing, and like everyone's all excited. Why are you excited? Let's see. So what they end up doing is you create these opportunities in a black community that's not designed to build up the black community. It's designed for outsider contractors and other businesses and stuff to exploit these money policies and stuff now focused in this area. So you can already see it happening. So one of the inner circle activists of American Descendants of Slavery movement, she retweeted another tweet from another activist. Let me show you what this one said. The one person did a tweet showing that the Asheville pushes reparations deadline after resident requests only 12 applications, and meanwhile some have criticized the $366,000 cost of an outsider firm called T Equity that was hired to manage the reparations process. And this person was like, his name was Non-Human Media One. He says, "People getting big money off these studies." And then Princess Six, the ADOS activist, she was like, "The consultants and academics will get paid to study reparations. You and your kin will get nothing," which is the motto I started this off with. So they putting these opportunities around the black community designed for whites to come in, whites and other groups, other rival groups to us, whoever, who already have their, they're already set up, they're already economically included and already have access. So they can already come in, hit the ground running, and build up their businesses using these opportunities the government's providing. And on the other side of it, so when you see here, this outsider firm came in, got a cool $400,000 to like manage the system for the black people. People are like, what? You know, very few applications are actually going through. They're like, it feels the way that Southern Homesteading Act felt, where it's like all these extra restrictions, and you know, how come so few applications are making it through? Because there's no program designed to actually help build up the black Americans. It's not serious. Not for them, not for us in that place. It's designed as a money-making scheme for the outside community around the black community. It's designed for them, but marketed as if it's helping black Americans. Using that same model. So when it's all over, whites will surely say, you already got reparations, Asheville blacks. And look at you, you're still in the same position you were in. Not a dime touched them. Maybe some on the periph or some individual outliers among that Asheville black community. Well, a few of them were like, you know, and then when you dig around, you'll find out they were like African immigrants or something and didn't, you know, technically qualify for a true reparations payout anyway. But they will spend this, and it'll be for general minorities. It'll be like any. Chances are those 12 applications that did go through were probably like for somebody completely different. So it's designed as a grift to continue building the wealth gap, spreading out that wealth gap. On the other side of it, the blacks in that community will still be poor, but it'll be highly branded as a reparations program for black Americans. And it'll be just another weapon for like foul-mouthed white people to use against us. And that's it. Recognize the grifts, recognize the games people play, and do not play into those games with them. True reparations, specificity for the black American former slave class based on that lineage heritage line. What we are specifically owed looks very different. And you have to get with the ADOS Advocacy Foundation so we can see what that actually looks like. See what that actually looks like and what you actually need to be fighting for. And don't let your enemy and the usual suspects continue to bamboozle you. Peace.